Welcome to Mana's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 15, The Half-Elf Godkin. Upon amassing even greater magical power, the entity formerly called an Elder, liches, would advance to a more powerful existence called a Night liches. Only a few of such beings were recorded in the annals of history, a fact which many people were grateful for. It is because Night liches were tremendously powerful beings. They could use multiple spells of the 6th tier, said to be beyond the realm of humans. With that much power, they could even hold their own against the older high dragons. In addition to that, they also possessed many special abilities, counted many undead as their followers, were highly intelligent, and took residence in impregnable fortresses. With all of their accolades, it's as if they were the rulers of nations, existences, worthy of being called the lords of the undead. In fact, the renowned 3 Night liches. The draconic Night lich Fanter, Argolos. The Night lich Titan Huyin. And the Night lich, probably, a lord of the shadows known by his moniker Fear. Famously ruled over domains the size of small kingdoms, and were dreaded existences who inspired fear in the countries around them. And thus, Night liches were considered beings straight out of myths, and were whispered about in tones of fear and awe. They were the same as natural disasters, to the people concerned. One of these fearsome Night liches who moved behind the world's veil with the nickname of the Abyss, Benigieri Anxious, came out of a huge room well bowing. With 6 arms and 2 heads, proficient not only with arcane spells but also spells from other systems, this Night lich was a fearsome being that humans could never dream of defeating. If he ever chose to act openly, the aforementioned 3 Night liches would probably have to become 4. He was an ancient undead who was the founder and a member of the innermost core of that organization. The organization was called the Corpus of the Abyss. Formed by undead magic casters, this gathering's original goal was to cooperate among themselves so that their interests would not clash. That said, it was inevitable for immortal beings like magic casters who spent an eternity researching magic to come into conflict with beings similar to themselves. The undead tended to have some other desires in place of the 3 basic desires absent in them. For undead magic casters, it generally manifested as a desire for knowledge. So, when there was a conflict with a piece of knowledge at stake, they were prone to not hold back, resulting in fights to the death. Hypothetically, if one concentrated all 3 of the fundamental desires of the living into one, someone with that singular desire would also find it extremely difficult to restrain themselves. There were many undead who had met their end because of this, though other times the living would seize the opportunity to eliminate both combatants. This resulted in more and more undead who realized that it was better to share, instead of trying to monopolize knowledge or magic at the cost of their life. If it was not possible, they should bargain amongst themselves. And so, they created a list of names. That's the tablet known as Graniezo inscription in the later times, a stone tablet that contained the names of many beings adept at magic, even though the tablet itself wasn't magical in any way. It only contained the names of 4 Night liches and 3 Elder liches at first, and the only obligation of the organization was that the other members should band together to thrash any member who violated the rules. After 200 years, the organization and its rules developed into a comprehensive system. The undead membership of the organization increased. A total of 7 inner circle members and 48 in the outer circle. Now, this was a large organization of 55 people in total, of which the undead of the inner circle were supposed to reach difficulty levels of 150. But there were very few who knew about this gathering. The undead of this organization were generally divided into 2 types. One group increased their power among the living and used them to achieve their objectives. The other group didn't interact with the world of the living, and worked toward their goals silently out of sight of the world at large. As the former were very few in number compared to the latter, this organization never took action openly in the world of the living. If someone increased their power among the living like the former group, that also meant there would be an increase in the amount of enemies they had as well. Especially as the undead were considered the enemy of all living things, these particular types tended to get eliminated by the living who'd even set aside their national allegiances for that cause. This led to a reduction in the former group's numbers. Of course, there also existed undead who managed to gather power among the living while remaining in anonymity, but such talented undead were rare. As a result, Corpus of the Abyss remained an organization that was shrouded in mystery and only talked about in rumors. The reason the aforementioned 3 extremely strong Night liches were not invited to join was because their addition to the ranks would make them stand out too much. Upon leaving the room where that one sat, he came to a wide corridor by the side of which was a room illuminated by a small light. It was the waiting room for those waiting to meet that one. That one would never prepare something like this. It was not kind enough for gestures of that nature, so Benigieri and others petitioned for it and received its permission to make one themselves. The person in that room called out to Benigieri. So you have returned. It should be my turn next. As Benigieri had waited together with them in that room just a while ago, he knew who the person talking to him was without seeing them. In fact, one wouldn't enter here without being summoned because it would anger that one, so they couldn't be a surprise visitor anyway. The only ones summoned here today were the members of the inner circle. After 400 years had passed since the founding of the organization, there were 9 members in the innermost circle at the present. The Abyss, the Saintess of White, the Death Rider, the King of Decay, Crimson-Eyed Duke, Wise Wolf, the Elder of the Hosts, the Eaten, the Revenant of Yellow. All of them were gathered here earlier and were summoned in turn. There was only one left now. The Saintess of White Grasrocker. An undead with skin like white wax who wore a white veil and dressed in white. An appearance that was completely white from head to toe. She was someone who had reached the 8th tier of magic and was aiming for the 9th now. Benigieri could not help but recognize her as the better researcher. She was also the favorite of the organization's present leader. No, that one doesn't like anyone. That one only finds everyone unpleasant but bears with it so that one can use them. He could sense as much from his conversations with that one. That one didn't try to hide this at all, even calling the magic Benigieri and others use filthy. So being highly valued was nothing for Graz to be happy about. No, that one only ever took from them and barely gave them any benefits in return. There shouldn't be anyone who could be happy being used by that one. This was even truer for a talented researcher like Graz. Of course, no one would express their feelings before that one. Regrettably, there was no chance of victory even if all of them were to rebel against that one. Ah, you are next. After it's done, won't you have a talk with me? It's been a long time after all. What do you mean? I see. Understood. I got it. Of course, I will happily accept. The usual place, right? Yes. I will be going ahead then. Benigieri left her and walked through the darkness for a while, something he could do without discomfort only because he was an undead. There was no need for that light in the waiting room either. He didn't know who arranged it, but that was probably just for decoration. The floor was a single slab made smooth by magical means, but the ceiling and floors were still rough unhewn stone. This huge cave was not natural. The leader of their organization had spent time and effort excavating it. They visited this cave once every few years or when they were summoned. But he couldn't help but sneer every time when he saw the effort spent in digging such a cave. Night liches who were good at magic generally looked down on physical labor, but this scorn was more for what this cave represented. The cowardly side of someone who acted so high and mighty before them. After he made sure that he put some distance between him and the room, Benigieri activated teleportation twice to reach his destination. He arrived before a castle built deep into the mountains. It was the residence of Crinui Log-Entishna, Crimson-Eyed Duke of the Inner Circle. Among the inner circle, Crinui was the one who loved keeping things neat and tidy the most, and surrounded himself with the best stuff. That was true for his residence too. This castle was built by the labor of different races paid with the knowledge of magic items, and treasures filled with gemstones was so grand that even someone without an aesthetic sense could appreciate it. That was the reason why the inner circle used his residence as the meeting place whenever they had something to discuss. Upon reaching the gate, one of the undead under Crinui appeared and led Benigieri into the castle. After being led to a room, he found that everyone from the inner circle except Graz was already present. Sorry for the wait. Good work dealing with that one. The one who spoke was the lord of the castle, Crinui. His most striking feature was his extremely pallid-looking skin. He was not a natural undead, but a former human who turned himself into one using magic. Maybe that was why they could see traces of his past self and his obsession with surrounding himself with fine things. While the others always wore the same clothes, magic items with copious amounts of magical power, he alone wore different spotless outfit each time, but his clothes did not have any magical power. For other members, clothes were something used for strengthening themselves, but for Crinui, there were things to decorate himself with. I want to wait for Graz before we start. You don't mind, right? Benigieri asked his comrades while taking a seat on one of the sofas in the room. No one objected. What would be happening soon was something they had repeated many times before, a discussion about preparing for a rebellion against that one. In the first place, they only accepted that one because that one was extremely powerful. That one probably learned of Corpus of the Abyss from some outer circle member. One day that one suddenly appeared before them and displayed his strength. Benigieri and the others knelt to that one because they thought that one would act as a deterrent against the strongest beings of this world. They certainly didn't do it to expand their organization. But that one was the worst kind of leader. First of all, Corpus of the Abyss was not founded to create disturbances in the middle of the continent. They would be troubled if that one thought they were just some convenient force that could be lent out for some packs that one had. So they decided to prepare a new deterrent against that one. It is the general consensus of everyone in the inner circle who got to meet that one the most. Normally, the more members were included in the plan, the higher the chances were of betrayal. If no one betrayed them, then that would be a demonstration of their lack of loyalty towards that one. And at least for now, no one had betrayed them yet. The fact that Benichieri and others were still alive was proof of that. Everyone here would have already been destroyed if they were betrayed. That one ruled the organization only to selfishly take Benichieri's and the others' research to strengthen itself. That one had been nothing more than a parasite, feeding on them. Even so, that one would never think of tolerating their clandestine actions just because they were useful to that one. Without a doubt, that one would take action to wipe out Benichieri and other conspirators if it ever doubted them. That one didn't have the leniency or open-mindedness a ruler should possess. That one was too wary about everything. Therefore, the fact that they were safe showed that one hadn't noticed their moves yet. Fortunately, that one lacked the ability to dominate the undead. Considering the difference in their strengths, that one could have easily controlled Benichieri and others if that one specialized in this field. Don't think you can keep extorting us forever. Benichieri swept away the huge form of that one he just met from his mind, along with his silent bellow.